Hi, I'm going to start to do some videos about my music influences and references. I thought it would be nice to share this because although I have a very specific way of composing and a bigger tendency to compose very specific types of songs and music, I really love to drink from all kinds of music and all kinds of artists. So I thought it would be nice to start these videos that I hope I can post with some regularity to share a little bit with you what is my music universe. So in this first video, I really had to choose these people because without them, I wouldn't be where I am, and they were definitely, and they still are, my biggest references and influences and inspirations to be a better musician, a better person, a better creative, a better composer, which are my family, my father, my mother, and my brother. So I was born in a musician's family, and because of that, since I was in my mother's belly, I always listened to music. It was impossible not having music around me all the time. After I was born, my father and my mother had this project of music for babies where they gave classes, and they still give classes to younger children and even babies, newborns. And I started right away there with them, and even if it was in classes or at home, I was constantly surrounded by music all the time. Even at night when I was going to sleep, I remember they invited many times musicians over to rehearse to their own projects, and I would fall asleep listening to the music, and it would change to jazz, to pop, to classical, because they were constantly changing the projects. So it was actually nice to fall asleep with that, and I think that's why maybe nowadays I fall asleep pretty easy with any kind of sound. Like, I'm really known to go to a bar or a festival and fall asleep everywhere, because it doesn't matter how noisy it is or how loud is the music. I'm just thankful that I have like a surrounding environment and sonoric environment to fall asleep. So that is also actually a good tool because nowadays living in a big city, it's nice because I can fall asleep even if I have a lot of noise. So thank you, mom and dad. While growing up, my parents had a lot of work. They had 2, 3 jobs, they still do, and they worked Monday to Monday, so it was very hard to have time, the four of us, all together. But eventually in the summer, we got and managed to have that time to do some summer vacations. And we used to go a lot to the south of Portugal, to Algarve. And there's a big trip when you have to go to the south. Our favorite road trip activity was obviously singing. Music was what bounded us, even though my brother was into his oki practice and I was into dance, and I don't know, my parents were in their work. Like, music was what bounded us as a family, and it was really cool going on the road trips singing. And I just found out recently some of the recordings that I did with my first phone on a trip going to the south, and it was so nostalgic to remember those days and so cool at the same time. We sang a lot of religious songs because I was born in a Catholic family, and my parents actually worked to the Church of Fatima, has composers, and my father was a conductor of the choir, the young children choirs. So we had a lot of those songs in our family repertoire, but it was cool, and we could do a lot of voices and canons, and we just had a lot of fun on those trips.
Olhei para o céu, vi uma nuvem branca. Isso quer dizer que hoje não vai chover.
Besides that, there was another moment of the year that we were able to play something as a family, and I'm talking about Christmas. We've always been crazy about Christmas, and me and my cousin especially, and my brother a little bit forced, but still I think he liked it. We used to prepare a lot of Christmas shows to our family to play and present in the Christmas Eve. Obviously, we would prepare, the four of us, a musical moment, and it was really cool because I felt that that was the only way and the only time of the year that I was actually able to do some music and prepare some music with my family. And it was so great because we actually bonded again. Music again was what bonded us as a family. Inside to the black man, Mary, did you besides the Christmas show, we always had this tradition of doing a video or an audio to send to our friends. Like a Christmas postcard, but very artistically. My father always loved to do that with my mother since we were kids. And as we were growing up, we started to get better and better. And we used to also record some music or some performance all together to send it to our friends to wish a very and merry good Christmas.
Só quem não tiver nem mesmo coragem para sonhar pode adormecer sem vir para ouvir-nos cantar.
Another thing, because of my parents' job, we also used to have a lot of people coming over to our place, like from different places of the world. My father would invite different artists, different musicians to come to the music school to teach new methods, new techniques. And it was great having people over because not only I was able from a very young age to be in touch with different languages, but I was also able to be in touch with different realities, music cultures, and personalities. And I feel that was also something that made me improve more. And even though I was too young to travel abroad, I felt that the world was coming into my house and coming into my place. So I felt that in a way I was actually traveling without leaving my own home, and that was also really cool. Because of this cultural mix and the more people my parents knew, the more environments and realities they knew, when I was 9, my father discovered this festival called Danças, and he and my mother brought me there with my brother. And I remember the first year that I hated, but starting from the second year, I started to fall in love with neo-folk music. And my father even bought an accordion, a diatonic accordion, and I felt that he also fell in love with this type of environment. And it was really cool that my parents brought me also to festivals and music concerts. Not only now folk, but gothic music, classical music. They were constantly bringing and dragging me and my brother. Sometimes we didn't want it to go and they dragged us to these things. And nowadays I'm really grateful that they did, because it was again another way of getting to know different music styles, different way of talking about music and making music. I remember that my favorite music going out with my parents was to the opera. I think nowadays that I look back, I'm not so sure that it was about the opera itself, but I think it was more about the experience. Because going to the opera meant that I was going to Lisbon, and I rarely went to Lisbon. So I lived in Leiria, in a city an hour and a half far away from Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. So that was one of the things that I loved the most about opera nights. It was the fact that I was coming right up from school to Lisbon with my parents, and I remember the experience of entering into São Carlos, this big opera theater, and so classy, and losing myself in the halls, and all the things around the opera tradition of going into. I don't know, it was something that I still remember the smell of the carpets on the floor, I don't know, and the chairs of the theater. I think also one of the reasons why I loved opera, it was because combined many different artistic areas in one. It had music, it had dance, it had drama, it had costumes, makeup, it had everything I liked. So I think that was also one of the reasons why I loved so much opera since I was little. One of my parents' jobs was at the local music school, and one of the things that I love the most there is that me and my brother, we had all the space we wanted to explore music. We actually were able to try every single instrument of an orchestra, and being able to decide which one we liked it more, the ones we didn't like so much. And especially nowadays, one of the things that I feel that I received the most from that experience was that even though I don't know nowadays how to play a trumpet or perhaps a violin, I know how it works. I know what is the anatomy of the instrument. I have a little bit of a notion. It's not something that it's completely strange to me, and that's great, especially as a composer. When you're composing something for a specific instrument, you have to know a little bit of the instrument universe. And being there and able to work with all these instruments really gave me a notion to know how they work. One of the things that I loved the most about the music school was the fact that it had a lot of projects that involved our families. Like, there was this one that's called Piccolini Philharmonics, where I would go every Sunday with my brother and my grandfather, and we would play all together as a family, and every other kid would bring or their mother or their father or their aunt or their grandparents, and it was like a big orchestra and a big choir too. We had orchestra and choir with not only the children but also the families, and that was also a good way of spending time with my family, especially with my grandpa. I also remember in the summer going with my friends and my father to the woods and to my grandparents' house to pick up some pumpkins and some vegetables and to build instruments out of natural things and do a small orchestra, a very chaotic orchestra with instruments only made by nature things. And I remember that was also a really cool thing. One thing about the music school is that everything we learned there and we did there, we also brought into our personal lives at home. And for example, when we had friends over, music again was the bond. And if we wanted to do some kind of activity, we would sometimes bring music and like ask people, oh, you know how to play the guitar? Great. You know how to play the piano? Amazing. And we would build an instantaneously orchestra and play a very simple tune all together. And that was really, really cool too. Again, music constantly bringing people together. My parents' other job, it's a project that my father created alongside with my mother called Concerts for Babies. And at the beginning, when I was very, very little, and my brother too, we would just go along and listen as audience of the show. But when I was a teenager, I started to actually be involved into the concerts, and it was amazing for 7 years to work alongside with my parents and sometimes even my brother, because again, even though it was work, it was what bonded us as a family, and it was what bonded us with other people that we really cared about and that we consider also family for us. And there I also again had the opportunity to work with so many different musicians and from so many different music styles. And again, I'm so grateful that my parents invited me over and trusted me from part of the team, and my brother too, because not only we had time to spend all as a family, but also we had a big opportunity to grow as people and as musicians. Now that I've shared a little bit about my family environment and how it was growing up in a musician's family, I wanted to share with you what exactly inspires me in my mother, in my father, and my brother. I want to start by my mother. You see, my mother is perhaps one of the most creative people in the family. I mean, we all are, but she's a composing machine. She could compose 1, 5, 10 songs a day, but she wouldn't run out of ideas. It's really amazing how she dedicates and how she puts herself into every single music. And she does that from a very young age, actually. I remember being a teenager and my mother sharing with me one of her first songs. Even, it was in tape, actually. I remember listening in tape. And it's funny because the title of my mother's song, it's exactly the same title as the first song I composed ever. I think deep, even when I didn't realize, she was constantly inspiring me all the time. And passing by her office and seeing her with the guitar singing and composing a new song, I felt some way inspired to do exactly the same thing. If it wasn't guitar and piano, it doesn't matter. Besides composing, she's also an arrangement machine, in a way that she can pick up a song and really think about how she can adapt that song to whatever instrument she has. At her school, where she teaches music, she has this amazing project with like 50 children and teenagers, where she teaches how to play traditional instruments, and she just coordinates this huge orchestra and adaptates all the musics that the kids love and listen nowadays into the traditional sounds. And I really love also her side of coordinating all these things and being able to actually being this super mom composer, conductor of this initiative. And I think that's also really awesome. The last thing that I want to talk about my mother was the fact that she never gave up on me, and she always gave me so much support, and she was constantly driving me from class to class, to practice. I cannot believe how hard that must be for her, especially having so many jobs and working so much and still being able to help between my grandparents and her to drive me to all these music lessons, dance lessons. I don't know. It was just, I'm so grateful that I had her by my side all this time. The next person that I want to talk about is my brother. You see, my brother is 5 years younger than me, but I always felt so inspired by him. Sometimes it was so hard because he was so young and so talented that he really pissed me off. In a way that I could be, for a month, trying to learn a music piece on the piano, and he could arrive, and his instrument wasn't even the piano. He was playing oboe, but he would arrive to the piano, look into the music sheet, and in a half an hour, he would play exactly the same thing that I've been studying for a month. And I remember being so frustrated, and I didn't understand why. Like, I've been working so hard and you just arrive and do this amazing thing. And at the beginning it was a little bit hard, but the more I grow, the more I understood that my brother has been such a fundamental key in my life in many different ways, but in music, like, he's been the one who constantly pushing me forward and forward because he was always so great that I aspired to be like him all the time. And I wanted to be like him. And the more he was growing, the more I wanted to follow him. And the better he became, the better I wanted to become. And I'm so grateful to have him by my side. And talking about this progressing sensation, having someone to push you forward, I really love my brother's determination. My brother, since was a kid, like, it doesn't matter if it was with music, with magic, with sports, with fitness. My brother, it's so focused. Like, when he puts something in his head, he does it all the way through. And I love his discipline and I love his passion. And even nowadays, he keeps me inspiring. And sometimes even when we don't have common ground, his energy, his dedication to things is just so honorable that I'm really grateful to have him in my life. The last thing that I want to talk about my brother is that he always believed in me. By this I don't mean that my parents didn't, but most of the times they didn't show it so much. I think that's because they wanted me to get better, and they were always constantly pushing me forward, and I'm thankful. But my brother was always this person right there that he was constantly saying, whoa, that's great, keep doing, whoa, I love this, keep doing, or I would change this, but it's great, I mean, I love what you're doing. And his motivation and his support really helped me to go through all the way through where I am today. And even nowadays, he's one of the first people who, when I'm about to think starting a new thing in music or new project, my brother is the first one to say, go for it, I'm here, and if you need help, I'm here. The last person that I want to talk about, it's my father. My father is probably one of the people that I most admire. I really look up to my mother, my father, and many people, but my father showed me so much and inspires me so much in so many ways that I cannot describe. But I think the biggest thing that I want to say has an influence and has a reference in the field of music. It's something that my father constantly says, that more important than putting musicians in scenarios and in stages, it's to put music in people's lives. And I love his philosophy. I love his way of thinking music. My father really taught me what music really means. Music, it's everywhere. Music is in our heritage, in our background. Where do we come from? What did our grandparents and our ancestors listen to? What were the sounds that surround them? What did our parents do when they were our age, and how that influences us nowadays? Music is everywhere in our daily basis. My father taught me how to listen to music even in simple noises that people wouldn't consider music. In a refrigerator, in a bird's melody, in a leaf falling from the tree, like in people. Music is in people, music is in us. And I think that's perhaps the biggest thing that I've learned from my father. And it helped me with the fact that for many years I thought that I wasn't a musician because I didn't study music as my mother, my father, and my brother. I was this person who studied dance and who loved to do music, has fun. And after working and growing alongside with my father, I started to understand what music really means. And I started to understand that maybe I'm a musician and I don't know. But and I think that was a big step that I couldn't realize without having him by my side and guiding me in this path. So these three people are probably one of my biggest influences and music references, and that's why I wanted to start these videos with these three amazing human beings. I see you in the next video. I still don't know the topic, but I have a lot of them. I just need to choose one to start with. I will talk about different artists, music styles, what periods of my life, and which type of music did I hear from each one of them. I will do also a bridge with my own compositions. I will show you some of my musics, and we will dig deep into my first compositions back to the past, to my teenagehood, and I will show you little pieces and how are connected with these references that I will show you. I hope you like it. I'm really excited to do this, and I hope I see you soon.